Released on February the 18th, 1999, developers Konami would create an arcade rhythm game called Guitar Freaks, which would have the player take hold of a physical guitar and hit the 3 corresponding fret buttons in time with the notes on screen. The game would become a massive success in Japan, receiving home releases and multiple sequels, but it would unfortunately never make its way to the West. That is, until brothers Kai and Charles Hung would bring the idea of Guitar Freaks to English audiences in 2005 with the release of Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero as a series is something of legend. It dominated the early 2000s and was practically a rite of passage for every older brother and cousin at the time. It wasn't just popular, it revived iconic bands and somehow always stayed culturally relevant. From a KFC collaboration to numerous TV references, the series would prove itself to be a massive rhythm game behemoth. The game would be developed by Harmonix, a Boston-based dev team coming hot off the heels of their other successful rhythm games. They would prove to be a perfect fit to see the Hung brothers' vision for a new Guitar Freaks.
Can you bring us forward a little bit too? That's good. Right there.
Alright.
A little bigger actually.
Okay.
Can you bring him forward?
Forward.
Like outside of the head. I think this is gonna be rad.
With a dev team on board, all they needed now was a publisher and the guitars themselves. Luckily for them, Kai and Charles were the founders of Red Octane, a video game accessory company. They saw over the creation of the physical guitars and even stepped in as the game's publishers. And once everything was in place, the development on Guitar Hero officially began. From concept to final product, it took about 9 months to make. That's almost unheard of. Even back then, most games took around 2 to 3 years to develop. But it wasn't just fast. It was cheap, like extremely cheap. The entire project had a budget of around $1 million, which was incredibly low. At the time, many AAA games were sitting in the $10 to $12 million range, with some climbing as high as $30 to $40 million. The reasoning for such a low budget was because the game was seen as too weird and risky towards publishers and investors, with a lot of them thinking that having to buy an external guitar to play a video game wouldn't work in an unproven market. This rejection would result in Kai and Charles taking out a second mortgage just to fund the game. And once the development truly began, things actually went surprisingly smoothly. With the team on a tight schedule, they stuck pretty close to Red Octane's original vision, and being a group of musicians themselves, Harmonix understood something crucial. They knew what made a great song feel great to play. The main setlist featured 30 iconic tracks from bands like Black Sabbath, White Zombie, Motorhead, and Deep Purple. Most of them were covers, since licensing the original masters were far too expensive at the time. On top of that, there were 17 unlockable bonus songs, including indie bands and even tracks created by Harmonix developers themselves. Though the game wouldn't find its beloved art style until the third game, it still had that dark and grungy personality. The world felt realistic, and the venues really made you feel like you were playing your way to the top, starting at the basement and ending at the garden. The playable characters also felt like they were ripped straight out of the music world, as they wouldn't just be regular looking people. Each one represented a different genre, from punk, jazz, hair metal to heavy metal, making the roster feel like a full-on love letter to the hard rockers of the past and present. And this love for rock culture didn't just show up in the soundtrack, it was molded directly into the characters themselves. Starting with the man on the cover, Johnny Napalm represents punk rock and all of its many subgenres. This is probably his most tame look throughout the games, as they started playing with everyone's proportions in the later entries. He's a perfect example of what a punk rocker would look like, from his bright green mohawk, studded belt, and clear inspiration of UK punk bands. Judy Nails is the alternative indie rocker of the group, and by far the most popular and recognizable character in the series. Her outfit also changes the most in the later entries, as she would drop the cutesy outfit and lean more towards a post-punk Riot Girl aesthetic that totally fits her way better. Coming from the age of psychedelics and the Beatles, Clive Winston is the stereotypical laid-back stoner archetype. He takes heavy inspiration from 70s British rock bands, from the round granny sunglasses, shaggy hair and mustache, bell-bottom jeans, velour shirt, and cowboy boots. Every part of his design is spot on with the 70s. Next up is Pandora, the second and final female of the game. In a time where Evanescence and Limp Bizkit ruled the airwaves, Pandora was clearly designed to represent the goth and nu metal fans alike. While her outfit is pretty basic in the first game, it would quickly become a lot more detailed in the later entries, really leaning into that gothic style and pulling it off way better. For a second, let's pretend Metallica and Judas Priest had a baby. Take a guess on what that baby's name would be. If you said Axl Steele, you would be 100% correct, because Axl is the stereotypical 80s metalhead that stands among Judy as one of the most recognizable faces of Guitar Hero. Between the sleeveless jean jacket, band tee, and overall vibe, he looks like he walked straight out of a classic metal album cover. The final character of the base roster would be Xavier Stone, and just like Judy, his initial design is completely different from the other games, as he would be dressed as a beefy reggae rapper instead of his iconic look in Guitar Hero 3. Originally, Xavier was never meant to be in the game to begin with, as his earlier rap rock design was even bulkier, but he was ultimately way too big for the game to handle and also wasn't received well among playtesters. But I honestly wish we were able to see a big character like this guy in the later games. The game also featured two unlockable characters, that being Izzy Sparks and the Grim Reaper. Izzy represents glam metal and would later become a base roster character, while the Grim Reaper represents death metal and goes on to appear in nearly every game as a bonus character. After the release of Guitar Hero, the game became a massive financial success, making over $45 million in its first 2 months. It quickly became a cultural phenomenon, with kids and parents scrambling to get their hands on these plastic guitars.
Guitar Hero! Guitar Hero!
What? Oh no.
Guitar Hero! Guitar Hero!
But with this newfound popularity came a problem. The guitars were selling faster than they could be produced, and with all eyes on Guitar Hero, Red Octane and Harmonix caught the attention of a little company named Activision. On May the 9th, 2006, Activision announced the acquisition of Red Octane for $100 million. From that point on, Activision oversaw the series and set a new goal: rapidly expand Guitar Hero into a massive multi-billion-dollar franchise, and while they did absolutely succeed at that, it would come at a very exhausting cost. On November the 7th, 2006, the highly anticipated Guitar Hero 2 was released to the public, under the new management of Activision. With a bigger budget and more eyes on the series, Guitar Hero 2 would come out swinging. It was bigger and better in every aspect to Guitar Hero 1, with a setlist consisting of 64 songs and improved gameplay mechanics, such as removing the strict rules for hammer-ons and pull-offs, and a proper lag calibration setting. The difficulty curve would be a lot higher this time around, so a practice mode would be added, as it was missing from the original and was genuinely needed. The setlist once again featured a mix of iconic tracks, including John the Fisherman, Freebird, Sweet Child of Mine, and War Pigs. Other songs like Psychobilly Freakout, Hangar 18, and Jordan by Buckethead quickly became known as some of the hardest tracks in the entire game. The Xbox 360 version would also include 10 exclusive songs and several DLC packs featuring songs like Bark at the Moon by Ozzy Osbourne, You've Got Another Thing Coming by Judas Priest, and Billion Dollar Babies by Alice Cooper. The character roster would also get 3 new additions in Casey Lynch, the hard rocker, Eddie Knox, the rockabilly, and Lars Umlaut, the Viking rocker, with unlockable characters including Clive Winston, a redesigned Xavier Stone, and the Grim Reaper. By 2007, Guitar Hero was no longer just a popular game, it was a full-blown cultural juggernaut, and that all came to a head with the release of Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock.
Guitar Hero 3. Because it's going to be amazing. It's the greatest Guitar Hero game ever made in all the trilogy of Guitar Heroes.
Ever. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Ever.
We're just gonna rock all night. We're gonna play. We're not gonna stop till we beat it. We're not stopping till the game is over.
At least 3 days straight.
It's gonna be the greatest
Guitar
game
Hero
without a doubt
3
ever.
3 days straight.
Better than Halo 3.
Non-stop playing.
Halo 3, no comparison. Guitar Hero 3, that is where it's at. That's all it's gonna
Halo,
be.
Guitar Hero.
We're gonna be straight rocking.
3 days straight.
3 days straight. We're not stopping.
Released on October the 28th, 2007, Guitar Hero 3 took everything the series had been building towards and cranked it to 11. For the first time, the franchise featured mostly original master recordings, which made the entire experience feel bigger, louder, and more authentic than ever. This was also the moment Guitar Hero truly went mainstream. The game launched on multiple platforms, including the Xbox 360, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Wii, and PC, meaning just about everyone could play it, regardless of what console they owned. And the soundtrack? It was absolutely stacked. Welcome to the Jungle, Paint It Black, Killing in the Name, Number of the Beast, these weren't just songs, they were anthems. Songs people knew already loved, and now got to play. Then there was Through the Fire and the Flames. What started as a bonus track quickly became a legend of its own. The song wasn't just difficult, it was a challenge video before challenge videos were even a thing. Entire YouTube careers were built on people trying, failing, and eventually conquering it. And if it wasn't enough, the presentation sold the fantasy perfectly. Guitar Hero 3 fully leaned into that over-the-top rockstar aesthetic. Exploding stages, massive crowds, boss battles, and a comic book style story mode made you feel less like someone playing a rhythm game and more like a rock god tearing up the world. The game was a massive success, selling millions of copies and becoming the best-selling game in the franchise. At its peak, Guitar Hero 3 helped push the series over $1 billion in revenue. This was the rhythm game of all rhythm games. Everyone had plastic instruments in their living rooms. Rock music was suddenly cool again to an entire generation, and for a moment, it felt like Guitar Hero could do no wrong.
Thank you so much. You too. Man, this is the greatest day of my life.
The only problem was, Guitar Hero 3 didn't just succeed, it was too successful. What had once been a risky passion project was now just a cash cow, and with Activision in control, the goal shifted from making the next great Guitar Hero to making as many Guitar Hero games as possible. After the runaway success of Guitar Hero 3, Activision did what any massive publisher would do. They doubled down. And in 2008, the series entered what I like to call the oversaturation era, starting with Guitar Hero World Tour. You see, World Tour wasn't a bad game. In fact, on paper, it made complete sense. It expanded the formula by adding full band support, including drums and vocals, clearly aiming to compete directly with Rock Band. And for the first time, Guitar Hero wasn't just about the guitar, it was about the entire band experience. The problem was that this expansion came at a cost. New instruments meant more plastic, higher prices, and a much bigger barrier to entry. What used to be a simple plug-and-play experience was now starting to feel like a commitment, but still, the series kept going, and in a span of just a few years, Activision pushed out new Guitar Hero titles at almost a yearly pace and sometimes even faster. Alongside the mainline games came mobile games, handheld ports, and band-specific releases like Guitar Hero Metallica, Aerosmith, and Van Halen. But perhaps the most interesting experiment came in 2009 with Guitar Hero Arcade. In a strangely poetic twist, Guitar Hero came full circle, receiving the arcade treatment, with Konami lending a hand based on their work with Guitar Freaks. And let me just say that these machines are very hard to find in the wild. Where I live, there are maybe 2 machines left, and maybe not even that, but for your viewing pleasure, I was able to track down one, and it is gorgeous. The game seems to be a modified version of the Guitar Hero 3 PC port, and features all of the characters in over 50 different songs, including Holiday in Cambodia by the Dead Kennedys, Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols, and Ace of Spades by Motorhead. And of course, I had to play some of my favorites. Yeah, first impressions were a little rough with this machine. The very first song I played, which was Alice Cooper's School's Out, crashed as soon as I got to the end of the song. Thankfully the machine rebooted itself, but I was a little iffy after that. After about an hour, it also became clear that these guitars are very heavy. Wearing one around your neck feels like you're carrying bricks. The buttons were also incredibly unresponsive. I'm not sure if it's just age or a universal problem, but even switching guitars didn't help. In these clips, you can literally see me smashing the blue button and getting absolutely nothing. Other than that though, I did have a good time. The machine clearly has its issues. reviews, and looks like it's been through the ringer, so I can't really blame it, but if you ever find one of these out in the wild, give it some love. It definitely needs it. And that's kind of what defined this era of Guitar Hero. Still impressive, still fun, but clearly cracking at the seams. At first, these games felt like celebrations. Getting an entire soundtrack dedicated to a single band was exciting, but over time, it became clear that this wasn't about passion anymore. It was about filling release slots. Each new game asked players to buy more instruments, more DLC, and sometimes entirely new setups. And slowly, people started to tap out by this point. Every holiday season meant another plastic guitar, another drum kit, another collector's edition. What once felt special now felt overwhelming. Sales started to dip, stores struggled to move excess inventory, and the genre that once dominated living rooms began to feel tired. Even the fans noticed. The conversation shifted from which song is the hardest to do we really need another one of these? By the early 2010s, the fatigue was impossible to ignore. Warriors of Rock would come out as a last-ditch effort to keep the series alive, but players were burnt out and parents were done buying the plastic instruments. And the novelty that once carried the series had completely worn off. The market was oversaturated, the releases were too frequent, and the magic was just gone. Eventually, the inevitable happened. Activision quietly put the franchise on ice. And for a while, it honestly felt like Guitar Hero was finally over, until it returned in 2015 with Guitar Hero Live, a reboot that aimed to be more realistic, more modern, and more in line with music trends. But it didn't feel like Guitar Hero. It was way too corporate, and its on-demand service would shut down in 2018. The series would take its final curtain call and quietly fade away into the darkness. To me, Guitar Hero will always be one of gaming's biggest what-if stories. What if Activision never bought the rights? What if the releases were more slower and more deliberate? What if the series was actually allowed to rest instead of being pushed until it burnt out? We'll probably never know, but what is clear is that for a few incredible years, Guitar Hero didn't just sell games, it made people fall in love with rock music. It turned living rooms into stages, and an entire generation into air-shredding rock stars. And honestly, you can't ask for a better legacy than that.
You don't know Kung Fu? Oof! That's a lot of nuts!